What would you tell the next generation of leaders?
Be curious, be bold, be humble. If you err on the side of feeling too highly of yourself, you've forgotten that there's a greater power. It's not dictating, but it's allowing. It's very important not to lose sight of that.
How big is culture for you?
Huge. Culture is not what you say, it's what you allow. It's a behavior. It stands at the core of any strategy. The best devised strategy with the wrong culture will always fall short.
Your place in Miami, there has to be some recognition as to what you have drawn here. A lot of financial advisors have come for investment professionals to see that they have a space, and Insigneo has been part of that. Hi, I'm Gabriela Pulido. I'm joined today with Raúl Henriquez in an Ideas to Scale, a segment where we want to share how we created a brand and this brand has scaled successfully. And more than that, what's his take on the trends and what's going to be happening in his company in the future. Hello, how are you? So what inspired you to take Insigneo to the next level?
Well, it's the feeling that you're doing something right, that it serves a purpose, and that there's always room for improvement. I see that we've gone from, let's say, from 0 to 100 in record time. We've grown more than tenfold in the last 7 years, from 2.5 billion to over 27 billion. So that, again, speaks loud and clear to doing something right, but it feels like we have the possibility of truly becoming meaningful as a service provider to a region that has been feeling the adverse impact of some strategic decisions that, albeit logical perhaps from the vantage point of the major money center banks that have chosen to de-emphasize or even exit the Latin American region, we feel that the region is growing in wealth, and as such is very much looking for an option to be able to invest the product of their success in a safe jurisdiction, in a stable environment, and that by and large points to the United States of America more so than any other place in the world. So there's a confluence of forces that almost pushes us into the epicenter of this vortex, and it makes you, in a bit of a wow moment, say, hey, if there is such a need and there is such an opportunity, why not go for it? Why not be ambitious? Why not take the moonshot approach as opposed to just trickle and profit from it? It's like let's make a difference. Let's make a statement that the region deserves a focused and committed player in the wealth management space, and that is Insigneo.
Let's unpack that, because there are many things. You grew tenfold, and we've been part of from the onset. But let's unpack that. One, what perspective did you have when you started Insigneo that you saw Latin America as the space, in terms of the why? Why Latin America? What was it lacking, and why Insigneo is different in that space? And then go forward. Let's figure what we've done for today and the future.
Well, that would take me back to my roots as a Latin-born and raised Latino. that came to the United States in a similar fashion as most people do, looking for a more stable environment, and then got to live part of the American dream from the point of view, in my case, of getting the best education possible, getting into the right schools, applying myself, and then being in a position to play in the game of financial services from the very early stage, in a very entrepreneurial setting from the get-go, and naturally just playing to your strengths. You're not only bilingual at this point, but you're bicultural, and that makes a difference.
Right.
And it just seemed very natural for me to always bet on creating the segue between the U.S. and LATAM. And I've done that over and over again in different strategies, but always focused on the financial industry, and with this theme that betting on LATAM makes a lot of sense for me as an entrepreneur. Nowadays, I say half jokingly but very seriously to any investment advisor or banker that would like to join our effort or join in the journey, that if there's any trepidation about the future of Latin America folding down or falling prey to all its political instability, they should not come even close to me, or to Insigneo for that matter. But if there is a shared vision that Latin America is here to stay and has brighter days ahead, they better join Insigneo, because Insigneo will be at the lead of this drive that I call being the focused and committed partner to the Latin American minded financial advisor, and we mean it.
So when you talk about that light for Latin America, what do you envision? Because you had that vision when we first met, and you created this tenfold, like we said, 26 billion AUM. You can say that easy.
27 and a half.
27 and a half now. Okay.
Don't shortchange me.
No, not even for a million.
Soon to be 30 billion.
Okay,
plus.
so amazing. So what light do you see in Latin America if you focus on the Latin America experience?
It's a hardworking mindset, and it's the resilience and endurance that stems from so much headwind on the political front. I'll speak to my home country in particular, because it's obviously the one that comes more dear to my heart and where I had most visibility. You know that today there's, I bet, more than 3 million Salvadorans living in the U.S. who are sending more than $8 billion of remittances every year to a country that has a GDP of probably 27 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a very significant impact to the local economy that is provided by this cohort that has made every sacrifice, even leaving behind their parents, their grandparents, or their siblings, just to seek for a better future. And that feeling of it can be done, it takes hard work, but I'm going to go for it, is you see more often than not. And it is what has created many a success story of Latin Americans shining at the highest level. And it is a far cry from this perception that Latin America is too risky. It's not even worth going to any country to do business with because there's no rule of law. There's this and that. There's so much bad press, and to some degree, the press does not help because some of it is leaning in that direction of giving a sense of insecurity that a lot gets lost in translation, and we see just the opposite. We see the opportunity that stems from being more diligent about understanding the nuances of operating in Latin America. There's no such a thing as the United States of Latin America. Like there's no general standards and procedures that apply to every country. Specifically in an industry as regulated as ours, you need to be quite mindful of each country's particular regulatory frameworks. But if you do make that effort, and for that you need some scale to make it worth your while, or at least to be able to profit from the effort, you got to have the scale. That's one of the reasons why I thought that it was so important to scale up, to be able to provide the kind of service that I thought was required. And for that, you needed to invest in such a way that only scale could allow you to do that profitably.
So let's go to that scaled up experience or success that you have. Why don't we, how did you do that? What did you envision? I know Latin America is the marketplace or the space. There's Miami, where you are based, home-based. How did you scale? What did you see? What are the triggers? What are the levers that you would use to scale? Well,
certainly inorganic growth was front and center. It was a matter of either you believe or you don't believe it. If you do, you got to double down. You have to have the conviction. So it was at first quite a risky play, and as time went on, I started feeling more comfortable with what we were doing, and then there's the proverbial double down. No, if you see that you're heading in the right direction, you just gotta do it with more enthusiasm and faster, because if not, somebody else will catch on, and unless you're taking the lead and you break away from the peloton, you're going to be in a crowded peloton, and that's not exactly the best place to be now.
Okay, so how do you define Insigneo now?
I tell you, Insigneo is known as the up-and-coming Latin American-focused wealth management platform that is trying to differentiate itself not in being a low-cost provider, but rather resembling the capabilities of any of the major firms, but really friendlier in terms of the region altogether, not defining that there are, or not differentiating between countries that are okay and countries that are that are not to be pursued. We feel that that is the role of the advisor, financial advisor that comes onto our platform and either chooses to put on the effort or not. We are here to provide the capabilities to enhance the value proposition that a given investment advisor or groups of investment advisors, because more and more we're seeing, just like in the big firms, we're seeing advisors grouping in such a way of complementing each other. This becomes a game of interdependence as opposed to independence. So much has been said, or we have been called that we are the independent channel, and I'm not sure that's a name or that's a label that reflects what we really are. It's probably somewhat of a misnomer.
How big is culture for you? And
huge, and and I have my own definition of culture. It was not homegrown, but nevertheless one that it resonated with me a lot. And it's that culture is not what you say; it's what you allow, and thus culture is a behavior. It's not a credo, but rather what everyone in the organization is acting like. It stands at the core of any strategy, because the best devised strategy with the wrong culture will always fall short.
That's correct. So in terms of Miami, let's go back. You have a huge building, your name on top of building in Brickell, yet you play a bit low profile in this area. Talk to me about what has Insigneo done in Miami space or Miami tech or Miami evolution in these years that Insigneo has grown so much.
Not much. That definitely is. It's one of the areas where we could be swayed to do something more. What we have focused on is the job at hand, or the task at hand, which is, again, providing a well-oiled machine, a very well-integrated platform to support the needs of financial advisors that want to join in this collective effort of serving the needs of Latin American clients. And that, if we do that alone, I believe that everything else will follow, albeit unintentionally. We seem to have picked the right place to have as our headquarters, because all of that's happening around us is quite scintillating. But the reality is our main focus is not necessarily Miami bound. It's more looking south and making sure that we are bringing on the best strategies to our client base and the best service capabilities to the network of financial advisors that we service.
So I do think, on the contrary what you're saying, and again, playing very low profile, you have done this gateway to Latin America, being you placed here. A lot of financial advisors have come to the region, have been here, have been placed. So maybe it's not the big thrill, but yes, you have given access for investment professionals to see that they have a space in Miami, have a space in New York, have a space in Texas, have a space in different areas, and a footprint. That gateway has expanded, and Insigneo has been part of that.
Yes, certainly we find ourselves in a unique place where we're kind of like the first responders. Now we're going in trying to help those who are in need of help in the financial space, in the wealth management space in particular, where others have chosen to exit the market. So it feels good that we
feels good.
Yeah, it feels good that we are contrarians, and that I would say is a key to any entrepreneurial effort. Is you have to be a bit of a contrarian. Once you're widely accepted as to what you're doing, then you're not really changing much of what is conceived as a logical play, and thus, if that's how you're operating, you're just left with the space of doing things faster, cheaper, but not necessarily better. It takes that genius of identifying a gap and come up with a way to meet that need. Mm-hmm. So that is probably a constant or a necessary muscle for any entrepreneur, whether called disruptive or not. If you are breaking ground, it's because you're doing something that's not logical, that is not deemed as commonplace or as standard. It's because you're going against the grain. No? And I like to be in that place. Since early 8 or so years later, with a global financial crisis, two of the leading financial players catering to LATAM turned their strategy away from LATAM when Merrill Lynch and Wachovia were acquired respectively by Bank of America and Wells Fargo. Their perception of Latin America was quite different, and there were decisions made that, in fact, helped us to grow as when both firms opted to eliminate their local presence in favor of just serving markets from the U.S. There were a number of bankers that were left with a tough decision of either packing their stuff and moving to the U.S. And leaving behind a very comfortable, unique lifestyle, or seeking for alternatives. And we were there for the picking.
You saw that opportunity.
We were there, ready to take on these orphaned financial professionals that needed a home. So I kiddingly talk about the first stage of our ramp up being more akin to being an orphanage.
Yeah.
and of course, in due time, as you start growing in size and scale, you're able to see what may be improvements to the model, and that is what we've been trying to do more recently, is just to enhance our value proposition.
So any glimpse of what's happening with this new administration in terms of Latin America and what Insigneo can do?
This new administration is coming really strong on being pro-business and trying to make an impact quite readily in favor of investing heavily in technology, attracting investment to the United States.
How do you envision the financial sector? What do you see for Insigneo the next 10 years?
Challenges. It's a very challenging environment to keep up with the pace of becoming better and better at what we do and defining what better means. Definitely, I see more technology than less technology, but I do see human interaction more so than less human interaction. I see human interaction augmented by technology. So this whole concept of robo-advisors, you don't listen much, or you don't. It's not a soundbite that is as popular as it was 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm of the belief that humans are here to stay. God forbid a moment where we're interacting with only with robots or with
agents, operators, AI.
So, but they will make us more efficient, more effective, and allow us what we do best is to connect. No, so I'm a great believer in human connection. I think that's one of my superpowers, is the ability to project and portray a genuine desire to do good, and that seems to be well received.
Going back to your entrepreneurial, or the way you created this entrepreneurial organization, which is Insigneo, what are your traits as a leader in this field? How would you define yourself?
Very persistent. And you know the difference between being a visionary and being crazy? Mm-hmm. The outcome.
Okay.
If you have a good outcome, then you're a visionary. If you have a lousy outcome, then you were crazy thinking that would have worked. So I'd say what defines me more so than anything else is this desire to create, this relentless energy to persist or to sustain all the headwinds that will eventually and naturally come along. And then the humility to rejoice, albeit briefly, from the success, and always be aware of the challenges ahead as a force to continue to build on your strengths and try to always search for excellence.
Okay, you've mentioned creativity a lot. So would you define Raúl's creativity, or how's your definition for you in terms of creativity?
Thinking out of the box is the traditional way.
Right.
It's like whatever that box meant. It's just coming up with ideas. I will say that is it a God's gift? Well, definitely, it's a lot to be thankful for having the ability to process beyond the obvious. But it's just being playful with your mind. It's not being rigid. It's not painting by numbers. It's just going outside the edges and think of the what ifs. I don't know. It's a knack.
Where do you get that source of inspiration then?
I'm a great fan of successful individuals and successful journeys. So now got me here against my grain in this setting. I love podcasts, but when I'm in the receiving end, listening to individuals that are much smarter than myself and that have done a lot more than I have ever done or can or ever will. But I draw I draw inferences. Oh, how can I apply that to my setting? Oh, gee, I mean, Mark did this or Bill did that, or it's like there's so many ways in which you can connect the dots. Though. So this concept of connecting the dots is quite a good graphical way to describe creativity. No,
right. What would you say to your younger self?
Oof. Don't suffer that much. Don't suffer too much. I would say that my younger self played too much by the rules, so I would double down on going against the grain. Now I'm allowing myself to be more ad lib, to be more think off the beaten path, whereas my younger self would have probably done whatever was required to get the grade. Now, in life, be more playful, be more inquisitive, be yourself.
I know that we spoke in English, but en español, defíneme creatividad del estilo de Raúl creativo.
Bueno, mira, pensar sin límites, ¿no? Es no limitar tu manera de pensar por lo que ya está establecido como lo lógico, ¿no? Ser un poco ilógico, diría yo, que está detrás del arte de la creatividad, ¿no? Porque lo lógico es lo que ya entendió tu mundo alrededor como la manera que se hacen las cosas. Entonces, el ser creativo, por definición, es ir contra esa lógica, ¿no?
Ok, ¿y tu estilo como emprendedor, de alguna manera, tu knack de ser emprendedor, cómo lo definirías en español?
Mira, tienes que ser tenaz. Como le dije antes, tienes que ser humilde y tienes que saber inspirar. ¿Y por qué? Porque ningún emprendimiento es el producto de una sola persona. Por tanto, es esencial poder sumar gente Y entre más tengas capacidad de inspirar, vas a tener mejor probabilidad de atraer aquella gente que tú quieres sumar a tu idea, a tu concepto, a tu intuición, para crear de ello una realidad exitosa.
¿Cómo defines éxito?
Bueno, esa sí es buena. Lo defino en términos más cualitativos que cuantitativos. Creo que el resultado cuantitativo de un éxito es su producto, ¿no? Éxito es saber atender a una necesidad y llevarla a nivel de excelencia que te destaque de otros que intentan cumplir con esa necesidad en el mercado, ¿no?
In English, how do you find success?
Oh, wow. Now I've got to put my AI hat to try to translate what it just said in Spanish.
No worries.
I would say it's more qualitative than quantitative. When you start measuring success by numbers, I think you come short. That for me would be more of a byproduct of success. Success for me means in the entrepreneurial context is identifying a need and then finding a way to solve that need better than anybody else that is attempting to do that at the same time you are.
What's the one thing that we haven't asked, we haven't covered that you would like to discuss?
What would I tell the next generation of leaders?
What would you tell the next generation of leaders?
Be curious, be bold, be humble.
Define the three.
Curious is what if? No, it's like never stop saying what if. Bold is go big or go home. It's why stop there? Double down. It's don't leave anything on the floor or on the field. Go for it all, and be humble. That is really the mark of any great effort.
Maybe humbly confident?
You can be confident and still be humble. They're not mutually exclusive. I'd say that humility is probably an undercover act of faith. If you err on the side of feeling too highly of yourself, you've forgotten that there's a greater power that is not dictating, but it's allowing. Mm-hmm. And it's very important not to lose sight of that.
Any hobbies?
Nah. Yeah.
No?
I would say what reverberates more often now than, and has been a growing learning process, is awareness, consciousness. I can relate this concept of humility and of grace only through introspection, through depression, through anxiety, through loss. I don't want to paint such a dark, inner life, let's say, but peeling the onion to the point where you get to know yourself. And if you can't talk comfortably about yourself, that means you haven't done enough work on yourself. So I'll give you just a tidbit. This guy just he was raving about his work. He said he loves his work, and he recalled that at one point the CEO came to give him a big hug for something that he had accomplished. And that was such a special moment for him. And this lady made the connection because she saw something, I don't know if it was a vase or that had the label Insigneo. And she caught on and connected the dots that the CEO that had hugged this guy who loved his work was me, and that she could not comprehend that kind of personal touch or humanity stemming from, call it a big wig in her mind. And for me, it's the natural way of behaving. I don't know any other way. I get emotional.
I've seen that. And remember the first speech that you were giving when we first unveiled the brand internally, that we had the breakfast in the morning at that space?
Yeah.
I saw that spark, and it was just more on personal note. And this is a struggle. This is a challenge, super open, and getting them into being part of, like you told, like the culture that you wanted to create. It's open, it's more relatable, and in a way, it's Latin. There's Latin traits. But there's also idea of caring, of supporting, and where you're going deep into the conversation as to consciousness and how do you feel. I have seen evolution of leaders in some. How can you get deep into yourself? Because you have to be great in order to 700, 5,000, or 27 billion AUM. You have to be in a space comfortable, in a space that you can actually give more of yourself, no?
And there's an element of, and this not to be publicly unveiled, but there's an element of, I was during lunch today, I was sharing, there's an element of rock star syndrome that is painful because you're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to keep the winning call it attitude all the time, and it doesn't happen that way. There are moments of doubt. There are moments of tribulation in the life of an entrepreneur that probably get cut from the edited version, and it's energy consuming to be successful. Is not easy. It's not easy to accomplish, but it's not easy to live with if you have any sense of what would be the right word of self-awareness. Is
it more of ego, or is it more of?
Well, there must be some element of ego, because then the higher you go, the greater the fear of failure, the greater the fear of disappointing, the greater the fear of coming short of expectations, and so ultimately, there's only a healthy dose of chip on your shoulder that you're allowed in order to be truly successful now. Because that drives you towards excellence. But if you overcook it, then you can find yourself in a very lonely place.
Any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I don't know if this was what I was expecting, but it was clearly therapeutical. This is a bit more personal than I thought it would. For a first time at bat. So there you go.